Ooh, all right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Thursday Night Hang here on the Coffee and Cigars live stream. We're back again. How's it going? Good to see all of you here. We are back again in the garage. Oh, my thing is just falling over. How's it going, everybody? George Brightman is here. What's going on, George? How many watching today? The Imp is actually an old friend of mine. His name is Troy Raynard. He has been my friend for 20 years. Him and I started on the coffee business together. And we met years ago. I don't even remember how we met. We met at some kind of industry event. I hate that like flashiness in the back. Oh, maybe that's just the crappy lens. That's better. All right. So yeah, him and I met many years ago when he was he just had when I met him, he had just started a place called the Cosmic Cup in Easton, Pennsylvania. He actually sold that because he got into the restaurant business and brewery business. Oh man, 15 years ago, and then he sold off the place. It was right on the Lafayette College campus, so it was really a nice place. Mom's with us. What's going on, Mom? How are you? Mom came out and joined us. So Troy works now. So after he left after they closed the restaurant last year, he was just kind of hanging out, and then eventually one of the managers at Cigars International in Bethlehem on Nazareth Pike asked him, "Hey man, you hang out here quite a bit. You want to come work and do some hours?" He was like, "Yeah, why not?" So that when Rusty started asking about doing a trip to Cigars International, and Rusty originally was telling me that he was thinking about the one in Hamburg, which is actually closer to Baltimore than the Bethlehem place, but then when he said that, I do like that location. It's kind of fancy. Plus, it's next to the Cabela's, so there's a lot of like opportunity for shopping. But he was like, "Oh, but I knew Troy had just started working at Cigars at CI, and I was like, why don't we go to that one? Because I've been to that one quite a few times. Actually, I've been to that one more than any other CI, just because has typically been in my pathway of driving. And since he's there, I was like, well, we got a connection, so that helps. When you have a connection somewhere, that always helps. So we ended up going there. That was a good time. Tony came with us. Brian came out. Mom and Rusty were there. It was a good time. It was a really nice time. Mom says, I met him, cool guy. Yeah, he's good. He's a good man. He's a good man. He's a good man. What's up, Brian? How are you doing? Troy. That's right, Troy. So yeah, he gave us some stickers. I thought that was kind of funny. That's the sticker from mine. He gave me one, and I put that on our Humidor. And Rusty was kind enough to give all the guys that came out one of these official Coffee and Cigars Tupperdoors. And so I put my Troy sticker here just because, he was our host. And yeah, we've got this. And I did pick up some more cigars while we're at CI for the next couple of weeks. Next week, it's going to be the Defiant. I've got a couple cigars here. The Defiant. This is going to be a way for you, just in case you get it. The Defiant. It's this one. There's a Defiant here. This kind of fancy looking band. I smoked one of the Defiants, the orange one. These are woven. So I smoked a Defiant woven that has the orange band on it. It looks like a little pig, shaped Vitola. Pretty heavy, but actually kind of nice, interesting. And then what else did I get here? I got one more cigar. Oh, I got this one. I forgot the name of it, but it was something that they had a sign for it. It looked kind of interesting, kind of fancy. What's it called? Alec Bradley Gatekeeper. That's what it was. Alec Bradley Gatekeeper. So the Gatekeeper is going to be in 2 weeks. The Definition Anillo is going to be next week. So in case you happen to have access to those, that's going to be our next 2 cigars. Andrew's with us. What's going on, man? How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Oh, and Mom did the same thing with a sticker. Excellent, excellent. And Brian says, George, we were hoping you would come and join us, but we understand. We understand. So tonight we're going to take a little bit of a different tack for tonight's show. Last week we smoked the Caldwell Long Live the Queen Forbidden Fruit 6x60 and Maduro. It's a Maduro cigar. And here's our score sheet from last week. And, I thought there were some really interesting flavors from the wrapper. Like there was that Old Bay kind of really spiciness, really interesting paprika, maybe some like powdered onion, some celery, some really interesting stuff. And even the filler had this kind of interesting bright note throughout the cigar. However, that 6x60 gets to the point where there's so much filler and the ratio to wrapper is so much smaller that you felt like there could be something really interesting, really exciting about it, but it was just out of reach, just a little bit too far, right? That you just couldn't quite grasp it. And you really wanted to grasp it. I really wanted to grasp that. And so Tony was like, well, I got these other ones that are smaller, better ring gauge. Let me give you one. And you can use that this week. So we're going to do it while it's fresh. So Tony gave me one of the smaller ring gauges of the same lineup. Because at the time when I got the cigar, I didn't know there was a whole lineup to it. But there evidently is. And obviously here it is. So here we are. This is a Long Live the Queen Forbidden Fruit Maduro. Is this the Maduro? I'm not sure. That's it. I better grab here's my glasses. I can't really see without them. George says, if you mean me instead of George 1, I couldn't make it due to previous obligations. I know we would have loved to see you there. We'd love to see you there, but we understand. This is the Queen's Crest Maduro. Queen's Crest Maduro. So that's going to be our cigar for this. So a lot smaller. And this particular one is 46 by 5.5 inches. So definitely a better ratio than the 6x60. Yeah, that was a bit much. That was a bit much. Well, it just didn't have a lot of oomph, right? And so we're going to do this one. Let me prepare our score sheet for today. So how's everyone doing? Everything's been good? George, I just saw your message just a little while ago before we started this. I totally didn't see that. This week has been quite hectic. My apologies. Maybe next week. Maybe next week. My father has a procedure tomorrow, so we've been getting things together for that. Nothing too serious, I don't think, but one never knows, unfortunately. But we are 269. 4226. The Queen Maduro 5 by 5 by 46. Okay, here we go. Now got that all settled. But first we got to do coffee, right? But first, let's do some coffee. Tonight we're going to do something a little bit simple. I was actually thinking it was going to be a little bit warmer. It's a bit chilly. But I do have, I got this. This is a coffee. This is a pre-made iced coffee called Blendy. Blendy is a blend from Japan, as you can see here, and I've seen it at the shops, and I was kind of like, I should check it out and see what it's like. So I thought about using this in the morning show, but then I just never got around to it. Actually, I was going to use it in the morning show in the middle of the winter, but then I just never got around to it. Plus, the idea was that we're going to drink it in the snow, and I was like, oh, it's just too cold to be outside for that kind of thing. So we're going to take this. It's been chill. It's a little bit chilled, but I'm going to put it on ice here in my mug. I've got ice in here. I'm just going to fill that up and let's see what we can see. Actually, one of the things is, before I taste it from the coffee, I should taste it. Oh, God. Oh, wow. I didn't realize, but this is a sweet coffee. It's black, but sweet. Oh, God. That portends of misery. It's not terrible. It's a little bit on the roasty side. I'm not getting any. I wanted to taste it before tasting the ice version of it, because when you chill it down a lot, it covers up a lot of those, a lot of the defects. So I wanted to see it, but it's not very defective. That's actually kind of, other than the deeper roast profile, it's pleasant. Yeah, and now that it's even colder, that sweet perception has been diminished. I mean, Man, I wish I had known it was sweet. I would not have gotten it. Well, that's a bit. That's a bit. Tony says that's the regular production. Long live the Queen, not the special edition that you had. Oh, I see. Okay, very good, very good. Oh, I wonder how much of a difference it is going to be then. Right. Oh, yeah, you're right. There is some difference. Like if we look here, there are two bands, the Queen and then the Long Live the Queen. But then on this one, there was different banding completely. Like you can see this has completely different banding, except for the top one, of course. This is the mid band and this is the foot band. Huh. Well, I guess we're going to find out. Oh, man, you know, that's a bit too bad, right? Like, I mean, I wonder how much of a difference the wrapper is in this. I mean, the blending and everything is between the two. Are the wrappers the same? I don't know. That's good. That's something. But I guess we're going to find out. We're going to find out to see what there is to see. Brightman says that there's too cool for iced coffee. It is too cool for iced coffee. We'll let you know the donuts are coming out. We're going to plan. We will plan that out properly. I got to get stuff prepared here to receive guests in the studio setting. But you know, there's a bunch of other stuff I need to get done. But no problem. I'm definitely game for that. Definitely game for that. And then George, you mentioned something about Friday. Yes. I'm supposed to be going. Well, I had always thought that I was going to go to San Diego this coming weekend for the annual coffee trade show, but I'm like, I'm not going to that silly thing. That's just a waste of my time. Oh my God. I should have drank something else. Holy smokes. Anyway. Andrew says tonight's cigar is the Brickhouse, Connecticut. The beverage is the Nikki from the barrel. Ooh, very nice, very nice. Excessive sweetness, fix it with a shot of extra. I would, unfortunately, we're not in a, we are quite far from the espresso machine. So I will just have to suffer and endure for posterity. All right, yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. So let's get into our cigar now. We're gonna get into this and see what it's like. Even though it's kind of small, 5.5 by 46, like Corona size. We could be in trouble starting so early. It's only 8:16, but let's open it up, get it out there. Wrapper looks nice. Oh, it feels pleasant. Not too supple, but it's a little bit veiny. Feels slightly veiny. Like you can just see a little bit of veininess. But not terrible. It's not dragging on my fingertips or anything like that. Nice scent of manure. Actually kind of strong, but not overwhelming, but just a nice assertive manure aroma. It's kind of nice. All right, let's cut this up. We're going to use our scissors. So how's everything been going? Everything good? Anything interesting happening this week? Okay, there's my cut. George says, when Andrew and I crash the morning show, I think we'll bring 2 different kinds of donuts. So feel free to bring a few of old-fashioned we'll have a donut taste off. Okay, that sounds good. There's definitely a difference. Well, I think. It doesn't have, unlike last week's cigar, maybe that's because it's a larger ring gauge cigar, so there's more wrapper touching the lips and on the palate. Last week on the 6x60 had a very strong, like Old Bay, paprika, that kind of thing, that spice. There's something like that here. Oh, maybe. Well, let's see. Oh, maybe it's coming back. Okay. Maybe I just needed more time. I can start to get that feeling. Oh, okay. I was going to say it doesn't really taste the same, but now that I'm maybe the coffee's interfering. But now that I'm tasting it, there is that same kind of present. It doesn't feel as forceful. It doesn't feel as strong, as assertive, but there's definitely that concoction of paprika, spice, black pepper, celery, onion, that really Old Bay kind of character. This is very interesting. Andrew says manure would have the manure was on the nose. I think last week on the nose it wasn't very pronounced. Is that right? Oh no, I don't know. Yeah. If you look here, last week I noted on the fragrance very low, right? So the fragrance wasn't very pronounced. I think that we're just kind of missing where all that interesting stuff came from last week was with the cold draw and the taste of the wrapper on the palate. Now, I don't feel that it's as assertive, and I feel like perhaps that's because of the amount of wrapper that's in my mouth, right? By the way, I'm burning an SNS special from the Mega Herf last December while I sip on a glass of Old Forester single barrel from my friends at McClellan's Retreat. Oh, very nice, very nice. Enjoy, enjoy. It's interesting. It's interesting. You know, it has that element which I think goes in hand with the Old Bay. In this particular instance, I also have this feeling like I'm thinking of like Bloody Marys, right? In Baltimore, a lot of times they will rim the glass of a Bloody Mary with Old Bay. I don't know if that's done outside of Maryland. Here they do it a lot. So there's that added element of like a Bloody Mary kind of component to this. George is asking also, what happened to the Adirondack chair? The Adirondack chair is finished. It's outside, wet. I have finished it, and that was my prototype that we used when you saw it last. So actually, I was at the Sawyer today, my local Sawyer, picking up some white oak. So I got about 16 board feet of white oak that I'm going to use to make another one. This one's going to be the one that's going to that's the real. Now this is the real one, right? Like it's going to be heavier, thicker, more robust, better to withstand the trials of outdoor life. The other one turned out to be like, and when it's all fully dimensioned, the thickness of the wood was 1/2-inch cedar, which is fairly thin, right? It's not that it's not sturdy, like it's very sturdy. You could sit down and it's not like it creaks and you think it's going to give. It's not going to give. But what it does rack slightly left and right because I think that's just the nature of the joints from the thinner stock. So this one will try bigger, thicker stock, dimension it down to 3/4 of an inch, and that should give us something kind of interesting, I think. I may have missed it, says Andrew, but is this the same blend as last week? I am unclear now because Tony gave me this, and it's theoretically, I thought it was going to be the same blend, but Tony says that it is a different cigar than last week, meaning that's a different blend. So last week was the Long Live the Queen Forbidden Fruit Maduro. I don't know if this is the forbidden. I don't think this is considered the forbidden fruit. I don't know what the difference is. Until Tony had mentioned that just a few minutes ago, I had presumed this entire time that these were the same and same lots and all that, just different sizes. But we're going to find out. But this probably, it feels like it's the same wrapper because we're getting those very similar characteristics out of it. What's up, Rusty? How are you, man? Good to see you. Tony says, I'm getting the manure on the nose, light spice, and also a bit of earthy sweetness. Oh, nice, nice. The forbidden fruit, says Tony, is the extra special version of the Queen is Dead. Queen is Dead? You mean long? Is there another thing called the Queen is Dead? I don't know what the differences are. Okay. Let me see if Siri. Hey, Siri. What is the difference between the Caldwell Long Live the Queen Forbidden Fruit Maduro 6x60 cigar versus the Caldwell Long Live the Queen Maduro 5.5 by 46
Whereas
cigar.
the king made use of a Dominican Carajo wrapper atop a Dominican binder and fillers from the Dominican, Peru, and Nicaragua. The queen showcases a Cameroon wrapper, Indonesian Sumatra binder, and fillers from Nicaragua and the Dominican. This answer is from smokingpipes.com.
Smoking Pipe says that. All right, so there it is. Sorry, longer than the... Oh, gotcha. George says that, may I suggest a few modifications to the production chair? One hole cut out for each arm, a beverage holder on the right arm. Oh, I like that. And a wider cutout for an ashtray. That sounds good. All right, let's get to the lighting stage of our smoking. Got these long burn matches that Brian gave to me. These are very nice. Thank you, Brian. I've been using them a lot lately. The nice thing about these matches, they're very thick. They're very these are quality matches, long burn, and they are made in, does it say where they're made? Imported by Canada. Okay, there's a Canadian importer, but that's not imported by Canada. UCO, but it does not tell me where it was manufactured. UCOgear.com. Well, it doesn't really matter where it was manufactured, just as long as they burn well. But the nice thing is that they're nice and thick. Like these are, look at this. Look at the thickness of this thing. Look how thick that is compared to the cigar. Like there's a good thickness to this match. And they're slow burning, long burning. I'm really liking them. And easy striking. Like so easy. Look at this. Look at this. Look at that. Oh. Uh-oh. All right, here we go. We're lit up and we're rolling. Oh, it made in India. Okay, very good. Oh, these are quality Indian matches. The first couple puffs, the first puff or two, it's starting off a little bit ashy, but I think that's just because of the light. Let's see where we're going. Andrew's asking, what's on the menu, Rusty? Ah, the menu. So we went up to Pennsylvania this past weekend. Had a nice time. Really had an enjoyable time. We got there about 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock, somewhere between there. And they're only open till 5, man. But gosh, those 4 hours really flew by really quickly. Like when the manager announced that they were having last call at the register, I was like, man, really already? Now here's what I liked about it. And I didn't realize this at the time, or I didn't think too heavily of it. But because we're friends with Troy, the nice thing is that we didn't have to leave immediately at closing. We could stay for a little while longer. We could have actually had another cigar if we wanted to, but I think by that point, at least I had at least 3, maybe 4 cigars. By that point, I was like, all right, I'm good. I'm going to have another cigar later tonight. So, because I still had to catch up on the episodes of Drops of God, which I finished. I finished the series Drops of God 2 nights ago. Is that right? Yeah, 2 nights ago. I started watching. I watched 5, 6. Is that right? No, I had already watched 5. I watched 6. And then, maybe I watched 5. Oh, wait a minute. I watched 6, 7, and then I powered House 8. I was like, I'm just going to watch it all, finish it all. I was like, all right, good. But I enjoyed it. All right, starting off, nice. And maybe this is part of the problem. Right? Let me, actually, I need to like do some evaluation here. The fragrance was good. Cold draw was good. I'm going to say 8.5. Okay, so because we had such a strong reaction to the Old Bay last week, I'm expecting, and the expectations that the ratio of wrapper to binder, the filler, is going to be greater. So the flavor should be more dramatic, but I'm not finding it to be more dramatic. And I'm wondering, like, am I looking for something to be much more dramatic than it really is, or than that even should be? Like, I can feel the spice on the tongue. But last week when we started out with, there's a heavily identifiable flavors of Old Bay. It's less pronounced in this particular version. It's there. There's something there, but it's just not as pronounced. And it's not as like readily, now that we're lit, it's not as readily apparent Old Bay. Okay, that last puff, a little bit more spice, maybe even hints. I want to think, I'm just thinking seafood, like maybe like shades of cocktail sauce. George Whiteman says, George, regular production is a subdued blend, don't you think, Tony? Oh, so this is, for compared to last week's wrapper, I mean, it does seem, it's definitely much more subdued in that respect. It's not a fanfare cigar. It's a very, yeah, subdued, I think, is a great way to put that. Andrew says, just finished and recommend the Scarpetta. Oh, Scarpetta. I thought you were smoking a different cigar. Which I can no longer find. Oh, TV show. Gosh. Scarpetta. I'm not familiar with that one. What's that one about? I have season 2 of Drops of God queued up now, but I have not started watching it yet. I mean, there's nothing to object to in this cigar. It's definitely, I can definitely start to taste this. Last week I mentioned in the blend, there was this note of brightness, acidity. That's there. Actually, in many respects, and I just started getting that in the last couple of puffs. In many respects, there's really a nice blend of those two, right? Like, I'm going to see what happens in the next few puffs, but what I'm calling now from the last couple of puffs is that brightness is starting to emerge, and it's in a nice evenness to balance to the spice. Yeah, actually, that's really getting to be interesting now. Now we're really getting spice, and that spice is developing more. Like now, it's becoming much more apparent. Like for the last few puffs, it wasn't so apparent. Now it's starting to get more apparent. Now that brightness is starting to come out and starting to really be like hand in hand. Spice, 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 bright, spice, bright, spice, bright. Tony says, I've only had the regular production, typically in the Lancero size. And George likes the Lancero. I mean, this one, it's not the heavy, fanfare, bright, or like dramatic cigar that I was thinking that it might become. It's definitely much more balanced. It's definitely much more subdued than what I was expecting, much more reserved in that. And the body is not heavy, right? Like, I'm smoking a lot of cigars normally that are kind of heavy in body. This is not heavy. Like, I'm not weighted down. I'm not like retreating from the smoke. This is turning out to be a really interesting, really nice cigar. Like, this is starting now to really show characteristics that we saw last week in the cigar, but now much more in harmony with each other. Less where last week the wrapper had that spiciness, and it was always kind of like fleeting. It's always like you're just trying to reach for it. You want to reach for it, but you can't touch it. Now you can. Now it's like, okay, now it's like I'm here. As we progress into the first third, it's getting much more interesting, much more enjoyable, much more enjoyable. Like, I would be interested to try this Lancero version. Like, this is, let's see what this is about. Like, this is actually quite this cigar, I think, is a rather different departure, or a big departure from what I normally smoke. And like, while a lot of cigars we've smoked are really great, really interesting, and I'm talking about cigars that are in our upper echelon of cigars, stuff that I adore, right? Things that I just want to. This is just such a departure from those. It's so different. It has notes that I just don't normally come across in a cigar. Tony says, I'm picking up on the brightness you're talking about, and there's definitely overall balance to the end of the first third. Yeah, that brightness is so interesting. It's kind of like the lemon, and not I don't mean that literally. I would not describe the brightness as a lemon flavor in this cigar, not at all. But it's kind of like when you add lemon to like your seafood, when you're having like Old Bay or like cocktail sauce with it, it gives that brightness. There's a really interesting juxtaposition and harmony at the same time, right? These are opposing kind of like notes, but there's also quite nice harmony to them. I'm going to tap that. Andrew says, so you're reinforcing the Herklotz discussion of wrapper and size. I mean, I think that's something that we've all, and I haven't heard Michael talk about that, so I don't really know exactly what it says, but I'm just going to extrapolate that perhaps what Michael says is very similar to what a lot of people that I know have talked about, where that ratio of wrapper to the rest of the fillers, really can bring an interesting dynamic. I would like to know what he does, what he has said about that, for better clarity. But this is very interesting. Like, I wonder, like, smoking this now, I'm always curious about this particular part of what I'm going to say. I think I'm going to need to have some fan action going on here to blow the smoke out, because Like, I'm always interested to know, like, how the people that create the cigars, what's their thought process? What are they thinking when they're putting that blend together and choosing the different tobaccos that they're putting? And I mean that true of everyone, but I'm really curious to know more about, like, what was his thinking in this, because this is so, the flavor notes are so different, so very unique to this cigar. Rusty says, no muscle special tomorrow. We're going to be super busy because of Good Friday and going to be shorthanded on the line tomorrow. Oh, one guy quit early this week. That sucks. That sucks. Owners need to stay out of the kitchen. I mean, this is, now the body for this cigar is not heavy. I would say intensity of the body is kind of like medium to low medium. It's not very hard or heavy or high. But I'm going to say it's got very good body, very good plus body. So I'm going to 8.5. Now the flavor, of the first third, I mean, it's so, I would, if I was just basing on my raw reaction, just generally speaking, to the flavor's pronunciation of the cigar, I would be typically in this particular case inclined to be like 8 plus, good plus, very good plus, 8.5, maybe 8.75. But there's such a unique flavor to this, such an interesting flavor that I think that's why it deserves more. So I'm thinking I'm going to put this in the excellent category at 9. Andrew's asking, what is the dollar price of the cigar? I don't know. Last week's cigar was not, I think that was around $13. I imagine this is somewhere in that same range. Maybe Tony can tell us. Like I said, Tony gave this one to me, so I did not buy this. So I don't know exactly how much this costs. But we are past the first third, and we are flying through this now. There's a little bit of spice here, that kind of Old Bay spice here in the back of the throat. I wonder if I should have some more of this coffee. Will the coffee in this format occlude the flavors? Let's see. Whew. I don't think that's adding to the experience. Tony says, mine is burning exquisitely. I mean, look at this one. Beautiful. I'm trying to be, not too heavy-handed on this cigar. But it's burning lovely. But I do feel we were going at a good pace, I mean, meaning too fast. Tony says, check your message. Okay, let me see. Let's see here. Did I receive it? I have not received it yet. Yeah, I have not received it. You may have to resend it again. Yeah, so I was I was kind of inspired this week by watching that Drops of God, so I ended up bringing a bottle of a wine that I had for a long time. It's been sitting around. I had a bottle of this 2016 Chilean Como Sur, which is a Cabernet blend with I don't remember what else is in it, Carneros, I think, but really, really lovely. A lot of like red fruit, robust kind of wine. Did the decanting thing. Definitely, I kind of decanted it for an hour or so, then drank it. Really lovely while we were at having our cigar. Really great accompaniment. Brought it home, left it in the decanter, drove home with it. Then had it that last in the evening. Definitely getting a little bit more oxidized in the evening, but still rather enjoyable. Nika, not Nikki. Okay, very good. Japanese whiskey goes well with my cigar. Oof. There was a time when Japanese whiskeys were relatively affordable. Oh, there we go. There we go. So here's Tony's cigar burning very nicely. So doing well. In my head, I'm ahead. I'm ahead. But yeah, that looks good. That looks good. Rusty says, I wish I had some libations last Sunday. Oh, that's why. I wasn't sure if you were holding off because you had to drive or. See, I think that coffee is the wrong choice. Let me get something else. I have a little bit of water nearby. I think that's going to be a little more palate cleansing. Yeah, that coffee is just that roast profile and the sweetness. Rusty says Troy had some nice bourbons. Ooh, yeah. He's into his bourbons. He's into his bourbon. Plus, he also had use of his restaurant facilities for a long time, which always helps, right? I just need to answer. Rusty says your iced coffee was great. I need to make some for school. There you go. There you go. That was good stuff. That's good stuff. Now, in this particular moment, the last couple puffs too, I feel, and I wasn't sure if that was because of my choice to take another swig of this coffee blend, but I think it's there's been a change. I feel like we're moving away from that spice and moving more towards the brightness. I don't know if that's going to change or come back. I'm not sure, but right now I feel that's the direction that we are trending. Maybe I need to give it a moment to sit down because there is a little bit of unevenness in the burn. Maybe I'm puffing on it too hard. So let's hold back on that. Maybe we can do another meetup sometime. That'd be great. That'd be great. I like the idea. Troy invited us to come and do the live stream from Cigars International. We might do that. We'll plan for that. Maybe as we get closer to the summertime, sometime in May. I've got some trips coming up over the next couple months. One to Pittsburgh. Where am I going? I want to go to Pittsburgh. Oh, I have to go to New England and then to Pittsburgh. New England at the very beginning of May. And then Pittsburgh, I think, is the middle of May. And George is asking, isn't it about time we hear from Stephen? I know, where's Stephen? Almost time. Usually I think he's around 9 o'clock. I'm hoping this will last till 9 o'clock because I feel like we're flying through it. I'm going to remove the lower band because we're getting close to the burn on it, right? So just take that off. I don't like to burn the bands. Actually, I might as well get my glue stick. A while back, I started to realize that maybe I should be preserving the bands from the cigar that we've been using. So I started to do that a few months ago. Andrew's asking, is Festool events? No, they're not a Festool event. These are hand tool events, right? They are woodworking events. There's an event called Woodworking New England just outside of Hartford, Connecticut, the beginning of May. And then outside of Pittsburgh is an event called Hand Tool Haven. That's, I think, the middle of May. It's a lot of driving. And then there is another event called the Craft, which is a tool show, a handworking tool show that's happening in Oldwick, Pennsylvania, April 18th. But it's an early event, like it starts like at 7 a.m. And I was telling Rusty, I think I might go to that because it's not too far from where we were in Bethlehem. But 3 hours. That means I gotta get up at 4 o'clock and leave and just leave. I have a birthday dinner to attend that night in Annapolis. So I was like, could I go all the way there and then come back to Annapolis? I mean, I could certainly come back in time, I think. And then since I was going to be up that way, I was thinking, could I also stop by Philadelphia on the way back? Would there be time for that? Three-hour time difference. Oh, that's right, because they don't change time in Arizona. Typically means he has to watch the podcast later. Oh, man. Well, we don't normally end much before 10. I mean, if it's usually, like, it's very rare that we finish, like, significantly earlier than 10 o'clock. Usually I try to make sure we're here for that time. But yeah, Festool has they have some job openings. I was looking at their website today for some reason. And I was actually thinking about applying for a job. They have a job for a sales territory manager for Baltimore, DC. But I was not interested in that one. I was like, I don't know about that. They have a territory manager position open for Arizona, Alaska, and Hawaii. And I was like, maybe I should apply for that. I mean, Arizona, Alaska, and Hawaii. Like, where are you supposed to live for that, right? And then if that's your territory, you got to fly there. So I was thinking, if you got to fly those places, then why would not fly from Baltimore? I might apply for that just for fun. Oldwick, PA, or Oldwick, New Jersey. Oldwick, New Jersey. It says on Google Maps it's about 2 hours, 45-minute drive. I mean, that's within striking distance of a day drive. Brian's now says I'm now on smoking cigars. Smoking tonight's cigar. Gosh, I need to be able to read. All right, so I was mentioning that there was that moment where it was starting to be more brighter than spice, but that now has passed. Now the spice is coming back. The spice is coming back. So we're getting some kind of dynamism here. It's still very pleasant. Like, I think we're close to the second, third evaluation. But there's definitely good spice too, because I can feel it, I'm getting that little bit of coffeeness. Andrew says your sweet coffee. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I agree. The sweet coffee was that's disappointing. No, what can you do? What can you do? All right, let's go to our second. I think we're still very consistent. 9 for the flavor and 8.5 for the body. Maybe 9 is good because there's still a little dynamism there. Okay. Now, you guys know when it comes to the woodworking thing that I do a lot more metric use because I find metric just to be so much easier, right? Because, it's just numbers, right? Just easy numbers, no fractions. That fraction thing really drives me insane. But I was making a planter the other day, yesterday. Yesterday I was making a planter, a little teeny tiny planter. The plans for the planter were all in Imperial. So I was using that, trying to work with that. I was able to make it, not a problem. But there were times when you had to divide. I'm trying to add I'm trying to add, like 1 5/8 to like whatever. And just like trying to convert all these things. It's just such a pain in the butt, right? But one of the things I found helpful is that I have, you get these tape measures. They all have the tick marks. There's one tape measure that I have that I really started using it this week. And I was like, it's made by a company called FastCap. And it actually writes down the individual fractions. So it's a lot easier to read, which makes it a whole pleasure. So when it says that you need like at 2 inches and 2 inches of 5/8, you can actually just look at it and you can see here, look at that. So much nicer, right? Like the other tape measures don't put those other numbers here. So you kind of have to figure it out. I really like that. I can't believe we got cold again. Oh, I'm going to take this last band off because it's starting to burn the band. Tony says, don't put the coats away yet, just yet. It's going to be 30 next. Oh my God, really? Son of a gun. But he says, I told him if he was too stupid to learn fractions, he should be. That's why I don't work in the trades, my friend. Although with this tape measure, I certainly could. Yeah, that's why when I got into motion picture production, I did sound instead of construction and carpentry. It's like, oh, I can't do that. That's too hard. Yeah, definitely. There's that spice is still there. It's really kind of interesting in this respect. Yeah. I'm not smart enough to do the fraction thing. I'm like, oh, I can't understand that. Like I was never good at math. Like math, algebra, calculus. I was like, God, what? Why do I need this? I'm not planning to work for NASA to send people to the moon. Which reminds me, we're sending people to the moon. Evidently, I was talking with one of my friends today. He was like, "Yeah, it's supposed to be the farthest that man has ever traveled." I said, "What? Really? To the moon? We've already been to the moon." And they're like, yeah, he was like, well, yeah, we're going to the far side of the moon. But I said, but when you orbit the moon, you have to go around the far side, right? So I'm guessing that maybe the elliptical path that they're choosing is a little bit further, like maybe like 10 miles further out. So it's like, oh, the farthest man has ever traveled. Near the moon, no landing. Oh, no landing. It's like those early Apollo missions, no landing. Just look. Do they have so? If I recall correctly, which I was not around for these events, but in the early Apollo missions, and I think in one of the Apollo missions, didn't they like have the lander, and they got in the lander, they simulated, and they because I only heard about this because I was thinking about the TV series For All Mankind, where they could have landed on the moon, but they chose not to. They followed their orders, but I wonder, like, do they have a lander on the vehicle this time, or is it just no landers? Andrew says, I find metric in both woodworking and cooking so much easier and accurate to get. I agree. But I agree. It's easier to work with grams versus points of ounces, especially in cooking. I agree with that. NASA plans a lunar landing in 2028. Oh, okay. Oh, no landers on. Okay. So no possibility of like going off book. That's too bad. That'd be epic. It'd be like Artemis team decides to land on the moon outside of the parameters of their mission. That'd be kind of epic. We're racing the Chinese. We've already been to the moon. What do we need to go back? I mean, didn't we beat the Chinese already to the moon? The crazy thing, I was talking to some scientists, some NASA scientists years ago at the old shop. We were talking about the moon. I was like, well, how come we just don't go back? How come we just go back? He said, well, we don't really know how. I was like, what do you mean we don't know how? Is that because all the guys that did all the calculations have retired or died? I said, what about their notes? I said, yeah, they have their notes, but like the notes are not complete because, they're calculating on the fly and they may not have gone back to revise those notes. And we don't know exactly how they did. It's like, wow, that's crazy. We had so much advantage and then we squandered it. So in these last couple puffs, the definite has the spice is a little bit stronger. And definitely the body feels like it's increased a little bit more, like it's getting a little more intense. The cigar overall feels more intense. Tony asked, didn't the Chinese beat us in Space Force? Is that the movie? I think they did. I don't recall Space. I remember the movie. I just don't remember exactly what happened in it. And what is the role of Space Force with the mission? Like, there's NASA and there's Space Force. Does Space Force do much with NASA, or do we even know? I don't know. We know. I feel like Space Force should have some kind of flying spacecraft that has weaponry and like in the TV shows. Like, if you ever saw that TV series, the animated Japanese series called Robotech from the 80s, I feel like Space Force should be like that. Some kind of space fighter. George says that Space Force, I understand it's a military. That's what I'm saying. It should be some kind of fighting. Or they just kind of taking over the Office of Planetary Defense. Like I was at a sci-fi convention quite a number of years ago. And at the one we used to have locally, they would invite like local, the guys from Space Telescope Institute, STI, and even Planetary Defense and NASA would be there, just talking about what they do, because it's all sci-fi, right? They give talks. And I was listening to a talk from the Planetary Defense guy, like, yeah, we're trying to figure out how to like defend the planet from like stuff coming at us. And I was like, okay, so we can detect asteroids. So let's say asteroids coming. And this is something I even asked them. So we have asteroid coming. What are we going to do? It's like, do we have anything? They're like, well, we don't really have anything to, not like in Armageddon. It's like, really? Well, what? So it's great to know that we're going to get pummeled. It'd be better if we could prevent the pummeling. Like you've seen Armageddon and you've seen Deep Impact. Those don't look like pleasurable ways to go. It's like, that looks like a pretty horrific way to go. Like Teo Leone on a beach, getting hit by a tsunami. That just looks, that's not great. That's not a good way to go. It's like those guys in Japan, in Fukushima, 2011. Like if you watch those videos, man, I remember seeing this one guy. He's in the field, like he's miles away from the shore now. He's in the fields, inland, and he's in his like van, racing down the road, trying to outrun the flow of the water. And it's just a surge of water. It's not like a huge like wave in Deep Impact. I don't think he made it. I was like, man, that is just horrible. Definitely spicy. Body has definitely increased. Let me take a moment from that. I thought for a moment about doing a brewed coffee. Probably should have done that. Tony says it's definitely heavier, still getting the espresso and spice notes. Ooh, interesting. I feel like it's definitely getting colder. George Juan, how are you doing out there in the cold? I'm starting to get pretty chilly. I'm running without the heater tonight. Although I'm on the verge of walking over there and grabbing it and turning it on. Actually, I'm going to do that because, man, it's chilly. So let me go grab it here. I'm hoping that there's at least enough propane to last the next hour. I've been running it a little bit when it got chilly recently. Oh, it's not lighting. See, I'll show it to you. Ooh. Here it is. This is actually my heater. There we go. Now it's lit. All right. Now we're good. Now we should be good. Put that aside. I can always tell when it's starting to run low because the flame starts to flutter a little bit. Then you're like, oh no, we're going to run out soon. George says, gotta have to run a hop off. Doing a Zoom with the film crew in the DR. Oh, nice. Have a great time, man, George. Good to see you. I'll be in touch. Whew. It's definitely getting more intense as we're getting closer. So what do you guys got going on this weekend? Anything going on for Easter? I usually go to my aunt's house. She usually has a huge group of people coming over, so that should be fun. Yes, definitely on the 10th. Yes, just take that as yes. I'm just catching up on all the emails or the messages that I got over the last few days, but definitely for that. I'll look at the details that you sent me, but yeah, for sure. Next Q, I don't know exactly what you mean by that, but let me know. So I don't think I can stretch this one till 10 o'clock, but I have planned for that contingency. Although I don't know if the contingency plan is going to, how well that's going to fare against this cigar. Ooh, one thing about the heat, right? I don't know if you guys have this, but like if I get really close to the heat source, I can feel the pressure in my eardrums. Andrew's asking, what does a Filipino Easter table look like? So for Filipino Easter, there's a lot of traditional foods. Really, I don't recall. Typically, one of the dishes we have is called pancit. Pancit is a type of noodle dish. There's many different noodle dishes in the Philippines, so I don't know what my aunt makes. Actually, the only thing my aunt makes that is like the signature of the year that we look forward to every Easter is that my aunt makes this dish called kare-kare. Kare-kare is one of the classics of Filipino cuisine, and it's a peanut sauce based dish that uses braised oxtail. So you cook the oxtail for a very long time, and then you add annatto seed for a little bit of color. You add crushed paste of peanuts, or you can just add peanut butter. In America, most people add peanut butter. My aunt makes a really great one, and there's vegetable. There's like bok choy in it, and there's like beans, like green long beans, some eggplant, and then it's a very mild dish overall. Flavor wise, it's very mild. So in order to like kick up the flavor, we use this thing we call bagoong. Bagoong is this type of crushed, like baby shrimp, salted shrimp that's fermented and crushed. And you can have it as just that, just a fermented shrimp, which is very salty and very flavorful. But then if you take that and then you what's called aliamang it, which means that you're going to cook it. You can cook it in oil with garlic and the onion, and you kind of like dark fry it to get a deeper flavor. And you can use either or. It's up to you. But I like the aliamang style. And but I'll do it anyway. But the thing is that like last year, and this is something that I eat on my own just in general. So every once in a while, if I have the kare-kare, I will take the sauce. So I don't know if I did this. I'm sure I did this pre-discovery, right? Like many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I was in Manila. And one of my good friends, actually my cousin, he brought me to this restaurant where they had this thing called kare-kare wings. They take fried chicken wings, like hard fried chicken wings, so nice and crispy, and they put kare-kare sauce on it. It's fantastic. I used to make something called panang Popeyes, where I'd make the Penang sauce, the Thai Penang sauce, and then use that to dress Popeye's fried chicken. Well, I interchange sometimes between Popeye's between the Penang for the Popeye's fried chicken, and then for the kare sauce. So last year, my aunt also, I think I told her to buy this, and she's like, "What do you want for Easter?" I said, "Popeyes." She said, "You're gonna make your kare?" Yes, of course. Popeyes. That's what I want. So a Popeyes came, and I was like, and I showed all of my cousins, like, "Hey, this is the deal here. You take the sauce and you put it on the Popeyes, and it's fucking amazing." It's like it's like the true best of like Filipino life in America. Like you have the Popeyes and the kare sauce, fabulous. But either way works. The kare sauce or the Popeyes, man. But if you're interested in trying this, if you go to an Asian market, and there's this, because there's how we have like rice and roti, the San Francisco treat. There's the ways to make foods that are relatively easy, that are from a mix. There's a brand out there called Mamacitas that makes Filipino food mixes. So you can just buy these powdered mixes and mix it in and make it. So they even make one for kare. So if you want to try this at home without all of the work, you just go to the Asian market, look for the Mamacitas, Sita, and buy the mix for kare, Kare. And you make that, and you put that on your Popeyes. My God, I haven't tried that. At least I haven't tried it knowingly. Probably had it because you haven't. I've had it quite a lot, but I bet that would be a reasonable facsimile. Or you can go buy the Penang curry mix, and if you buy the Penang curry mix, here's what you do: there's a bunch of different brands. Masri. There's also Choco, either one works, but you take that mix. They come in a little can like this, right? You take your frying pan. What you do is you take a little bit of oil, you put that in there, and you fry it a little bit, right? Fry it a little bit. One of my Thai girlfriends told me this years ago, and so you fry it a little bit, and then you put the coconut milk, put a can of coconut milk in it. I like Choco coconut milk, but whatever you have, put that in there, and that creates your sauce. And then you can add your chicken or whatever you want to make your Penang curry. But I just make that and then use it with the Popeyes. Excellent. Brian says the 10th, I suddenly feel. No, there's just something that's going on Friday, on the 10th that they asked me to do for them. So that's what that's about. And actually, last Easter, when we had the Popeyes, that's all that I ate. I didn't eat anything else. I had the Popeyes, the curry sauce, the kare sauce, and yeah, that's all that I remember eating. There's a lot of other foods. I just don't know what it was. I just don't recall. Everything is secondary to the Popeyes. Like you might think that, Filipinos, man, you probably should be using Jollibee fried chicken, but I don't think that would work as well. There's something about the Popeyes. It's just right. Especially when you get nice and hot and freshly fried, so it's nice and crisp. Man. And it's like still juicy. You go to Popeyes, sometimes it's been there for a while, so it's kind of dry. It's not as nice. So how about you guys? What do you guys normally have for Easter? Like, I don't even know what normal people would eat for Easter. Ham, I think, right? Ham is a big thing for Easter. Of course, Easter eggs if you're younger. Although I don't think any of the children now are of the age of Easter egg hunting anymore. Well, maybe some of them have. I think some of the cousins have kids still that are young enough. But I think a lot of them are older now. Uh-oh. There it is. It's starting to flutter. Oh, I think it's going to go out now. Yep, there it is. Yep, done. No musk heat. Yeah, I was supposed to go to San Diego next weekend. But after looking at it, man, it's like, oh, it's just such a pain. It's, San Diego is one of those places where, like, it's just expensive. Like, I remember I was there in 2016. One of my friends, she wanted to go. So I was like, okay, let's go. And it was summertime. So I think it was close to the Comic-Con time of the year. So hotel rooms were like astronomical, 300 and up. I ended up getting a room at a Motel 6. Motel 6 are cheap hotels, $55 a night. That's typical. So that's fine. I don't mind staying in a Motel 6, $55 a night. Because, you just need a place to crash. But this Motel 6 was way outside of downtown, close to La Jolla. It was $150 a night. I was like, $150 a night? Son of a gun. That's just terrible. So one of my friends, she called me up in January. She's like, are you going? I was like, I think so. She's like, it's super expensive. I was like, oh God, here we go again. So as we kept getting closer, I was like, the prices weren't, the airfare is not terrible. It was like, I think I looked like 3 days ago, and United round trip to San Diego from Baltimore was like $550, $575. I don't want to spend that kind of money. Tony says, burn fingers, but it's finished strong. Awesome. Brian says you can stay with the Masatos. That's true. That's true. I mean, Tony did mention that, but you don't really want to stay at family housing when you want to you might get a little bit dirty, right? So plus my outings tend to be, especially at that event, like we're out early and then we come back late, like 1, 2 in the morning. So that's never nice to like roll in at 2, 3. Maybe when I was young, that was all right. But now that we're older, it's like, oh, you don't want to do that. All right, there was that cigar. Let's do the evaluation on it. I think the flavor is still 9. Body did increase in intensity, but I'm going to still keep it at 8.5. Very good plus. Now, our burn and draw, no issues with burn and draw the whole time. So I'm going to say 9 for that. 9 for consistency. Overall, I'm going to say 8.75. All right, so our score for today's cigar is 87.75. So a good score, but I'm actually a little bit surprised. Did I calculate this correctly? Let me double check, because I feel like, considering the numbers we gave, I feel like that might be. No, 87.75. That's right. That's right. Brian says it's not the 1, 2 o'clock in the morning that's the problem. It's when you bring somebody back. That is always the problem. Yeah, this pencil is one of those black wings. I've been using these black wing pencils a lot lately. This is their hardest lead. This is what they call the firm of their regular line pencils. And I've always historically, especially when I was in art school, we did a lot of pencil work. I always liked the firmer leads better. I just like the feel. The softer leads, I'm not a big fan of. I mean, I have some softer lead pens. I just use whatever pencils are lying around. And I have like in the various, they have 4 different styles of hardness. And these are, but I do like the harder ones. Much nicer. And this one is in a natural tone. These are nice. If they sell these if you want to buy them, you could buy them individually. Like if you went to like Blackwing's website, they have like a 4-pack of each one, so you could try them out. And then they sell them in boxes of a dozen. I think that the dozen are like $35. They're kind of expensive for pencils. I buy these whenever I'm down in Rockville. I go to a place called Bertram's Inkwell, which is the pen store. They sell these. And in their the core line, the 4 different sizes, they will sell them individually. So I just buy them individually. I did buy a couple boxes, like a box of the Festool version, but the Festool version is a lot softer in lead, so they're okay. I mean, they're fine. And then I bought a recent Blackwing this year. In the last couple months, they released something called the, I think they call it the number 21. It's a woodworking honorarium pencil. So instead of it being, the hexagonal shape that most pencils are, it's actually a square shape, so 4 sides. So it's a little bit, and it's got a softer lead than this one. So I wish it had this lead, but well, what can you do? Tony says nobody likes soft lead. That's what she said. Yeah, nobody wants that. You want the firm. You want to give it the firm, right? But I gotta say, they have these sharpeners. I've showed you the 2-stage sharpeners. They really bring a really sharp point to the pencil. I really like it. You burn a lot of the pencil to sharpen it that way, but it is a nice point. And actually, you could buy the Blackwing version of it. I think it's like $18 for this sharpener. But if you go to like Blick Art Supply downtown Baltimore, or any art supply, just call them. There's a brand called Kum, K-U-M, Kum. It's a German company. They're actually the ones that make the ones for Blackwing under their branding and their own casing, which is a nicer packaging. Like the tactile feel of the case itself is really kind of supple and smooth. The ones that Kum makes is just hard plastic. They work just as good, and they're $7. So it's like, okay, that's the way to go. So I now keep like the Kums, like there's one in the car, there's one here, there's one by my desk. So it's like I just keep them around so I don't have to like worry too much about them. But yeah, give them a try, see what you think. Oh man, just can't believe this tank is dead. I wonder if I'm going to replace it. Let me go grab a replacement, and then we will continue. I do have a follow-up to continue on. Oops. I can't believe it's so cold. And a bit rainy outside. These 20-pound tanks don't feel like 20 pounds. Every time I take off the tank, it always releases the gas because I'm not very good at closing the valve. Sometimes I wonder, am I going to ignite something? I do wish there was a better system for the valves, putting them on there. All right. Okay, that should do it. Let's see if we can get this lit again. There we go. All right, that's a little bit better. All right, so now we've got our Long Live the Queen is done. Maybe we'll put this next one under evaluation as well, because it's kind of an interesting cigar. You know, when Tony gave me the cigar, it was like we were talking about. It's like, oh, it's going to be a short one. I was like, yeah, it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be a short one. So I was looking for something that would probably be good for a shorter smoke, and I picked this one. This one is well, I guess what we call a vintage cigar. Bud says a Facebook Marketplace has 2 100-pound propane. Oh my, that's crazy. That's too much to carry, man. Like, you feel that 100-pound propane tank. So if water, I think the liquid LPG is lighter than gas by the gallon, or lighter than water by the gallon. Water is 8 pounds per gallon. So the LPG would be like 80 pounds. Oh no, yeah, 80 pounds, right? Wait, 100 gallons. No, that can't be right. 800 pounds? That's not right. Hey, Siri, how much does 1 gallon of liquid propane gas weigh?
1 gallon of propane weighs around 4.25 pounds. This answer is from learnmetrics.com.
So, Siri, hey, Siri, so how much would 100 gallons of propane weigh?
Full 100-gallon tank weighs 212 pounds plus 340 pounds equals 552 pounds.
500. Thank you,
This
Siri.
is from learnmetrics.com.
So 552 pounds. Okay, that's too much to carry. So what we have here is something called the La Gloria Cubana Minuto. And Minuto, this particular cigar, comes from the mid-1990s. And I bought this box from a place called Poor Richards. I was looking at there's actually the price tag still in the box. Probably only had maybe 6 or 7 of these left. And this cigar back then in the mid-90s was $3.80 per stick, $80 a box. So we're going to see how it turns out. Some 30 years later, as you can see, the cello is very, I don't know if it comes through, but it's actually very brown and very tight. Like, I don't know, can I get this out? Wow, that's really snug. Look at, I don't know if you can see the brown. Look at that, very brown. So how's your guys' cigars coming along? Success, or do you like it? Do you not like it? Oh, a little bit of tearing on the wrapper here. I'll just take that band off completely. So this particular cigar is, how many millimeters is this? This is 4.5 inches, so about 115 millimeters. And it is just over 1/2 inch. So this is probably what, a 46 ring gauge? But he says that 100-pound tank is about 100 pounds of propane. It's not in gallons, kind of like your, okay. Oh, 20, oh yeah, 2 pounds. Yeah, you're right. It's 4, when I fill this tank, it's usually about 4.5 gallons, 4.4 gallons. You're right. You're totally right about that. That's why it said it was 200 or 552 pounds, because I guess it's 212 for the weight of the gas, and then 300 for maybe it's 212 for the weight of the tank. One of my friends has one of those, and I don't like the idea of moving that. Really kind of sucks. All right, here we go. Cut it off the top there. There is like a light manure-ish kind of flavor, aroma to it. It's fairly on the lighter side. Actually, surprisingly, there is a good amount of aroma. Not much of the cold draw. Pretty tight. Like really tight draw for the cold draw. I feel like it's so small that it's a shame to burn a match. Had a bit of an end of an era this week. Those of you who know me know that my driver's license has been issued from Hawaii for the last like 40 years. And or 30 years, and actually longer, 35 years. Longer than that, 1988. So it's like 38 years. And I renewed it several years ago. And then for some reason I was thinking, I thought the renewal was next year. And then I just looked at my license not too long ago, and I was like, oh God, it's expiring this year, like yesterday. So like last week I called up the motor vehicles in Hawaii, and I was like, so what do we need to do? And like, you need to do all this. And I was like, oh God. Turned out it was a lot of stuff they had to like to get from like doctors and optometrists, because you got to do all this stuff for renewal they would normally do at the center. Since you have to do it remotely, you have to go get that all done. I was like, well, I don't know if I can have that all done in time. So I just went over to motor vehicles here in Maryland and just converted it to a Maryland license. So now I will have a Maryland license. Eric was kind enough to help me out. Thank you, Eric. All right, so starting off, this is a pretty old cigar, right? Probably from 1996, right around there. So it's 30 years old. So it's fairly like, it's starting off very mild. Doesn't have that oomph that we might have from a modern cigar, but this is also a cigar from an era that is completely different in cigars, right? When in modern time, in the 90s, cigars were not as heavy as they are today. Like today's cigars, especially the ones from Nicaragua like that, tend to be very heavy. A lot of power, a lot of force, a lot of strength, a lot of body. Back then, they were not like that. They were a lot more milder. They were a lot more, I guess, comparatively, they would be a lot more delicate. If you smoke back then, remember there was a brand called Pleiades. Pleiades had a very like light and delicate flavor to it. And back then, our Toro Fuente green line was still kind of a very boutique, newer kind of brand. They were growing into the juggernaut that they'd become, but they were nowhere near there. And I remember people telling me stories of Carlito Fuente, having a hotel room where he would try to sell cigars to buyers, when he was starting out. So it's like a very different time. But even by the mid 90s, the early to mid 90s, companies like Fuente still already had a reputation. They had a very good reputation even back then, and they even had some cigars that were very difficult to get, like, that were very desirable. The green line was available, but things like the Don Carlos line were very difficult to get. And this is a time pre Opus X, right? There was a time when Opus X didn't exist yet. So it was very interesting time to get. Like, I remember I waited with my tobacconist, which was a place called Rolling Road Tobacco. And I remember I got a box of Don Carlos #3, but it took a while to get it. Like, it took months to get that box because, they were just in short supply. Because the interesting thing is that I was not too long ago, I went to a cigar shop locally, and there was a young gentleman working there, and I was kind of surprised, right? Because he was young. You don't really see. I feel like we don't really see too many young people smoking cigars. Yeah, and I mean young, like in their 20s. And the one night that we were there, I happened to go in the Humidor to get my second cigar, and this guy was talking to some other customers who were in there, like 3 other guys, about similar age, in their 20s, exploring cigars. And I sometimes wonder that, those of us who've been smoking for a while, do we do enough to encourage younger smokers, younger cigar enthusiasts, or do we kind of look at them with some level of disdain and impatience? I wonder if we're like that, because I remember, but when I think about it, it's like when I started smoking cigars, when I bought this cigar, I was still in my 20s. So that was a long time ago. And like, I wonder, like, now I started smoking when the boom was just beginning. The 90s boom of cigars was just beginning. So there was a whole like renaissance of cigars back then. So a lot of people were exploring cigars, but I wonder, and I don't know if we have such a boom today, but I wonder, like, do we need, you know, I think we should bear in mind that, while we're now the seasoned cigar enthusiasts, that we should also remember that, we need to encourage the younger people that are exploring the cigars as well. And, in 1996 or let's say 94, 96, 95, whatever, $3.80 for this cigar. Not a bad price. Like, you could buy this cigar daily, fairly reasonable, fairly reasonable. Even if you're making $5.25 an hour, if you're working a beginning job. But now, man, what's the cost of entry now? It's much higher. So I think it's a much more, I think in some respects, perhaps it's more significant event for a younger enthusiast to get into the enjoyment of cigars, because the cost of entry is definitely higher, especially now we're talking like a lot of cigars that we talk about and maybe, encourage others to try are going to be above $10 a piece, $13, $15, maybe even more. George says, good evening all, part of my TARDIS. No worries, my friend. How are you? We're already on to round 2 here because we couldn't last long enough. How you doing, man? How are you back out on the porch smoking? I imagine you are, in the cold. After yesterday's heat and humidity, like, it was pretty humid yesterday. I was a bit disappointed to have today's chill. I was like, oh, come on. And Tony says we're going to get 30 next Tuesday. But this cigar, relatively mild comparatively, but nice flavor. There is complexity to this cigar, but it's very like mild and very like well balanced. Like, it's such a departure from what we have today. Like, even today's cigar, right? The Long Live the Queen, while it had good balance and really wonderful to smoke, it also had very pronounced notes, that spice, that Old Bay, the brightness, right? This doesn't have those things. This is much more, maybe the best term is elegant. Steven's with us too. What's on, man? Good to see you. How are you doing? How are things in Arizona? One thing about this cigar, though, and I don't know, I don't recall if this is how they were back then. I'm going to presume that perhaps it was, because I don't think the construction will have changed over time. Like, I don't think it'll constrict or loosen more than it was. But this particular roll is quite tight. Like, the draw is very tight on this one. Not uncomfortably tight, but definitely snug. Brian says we're smoking a cigar so we can have a 10 p.m. That we are. Because I think we were done by 8:20. The other cigar, but definitely this is a tighter draw. But so far the burn is very nice. Look at that. That burn is very well balanced. I mean, this is Ernesto Perez Carrillo at his, like, perhaps this is at his zenith, right? This is back when La Gloria Cubana was a very small operation in Miami. These were all made in Miami. This is a whole different world of cigars, like a whole different era. Steven says it's 78 degrees, 79 degrees in Arizona. Man, nice. Smoking SLR, sipping on Dr. Pepper. Ooh, Dr. Pepper. SLR, what's it? What is the SLR? I've been having Diet Dr. Pepper a lot more lately. Well, just at least once a week. I've been sneaking into Sam's Club to avail myself of their pizza and soda special, $2.65 for the 4-meat pizza. Actually, all the pizzas are the same price, but $2.65. Man, good deal. Andrew says that there's a good contingent of youthful cigar smokers at Capitol tonight, availing of Brightman's tutelage. Excellent. I must say, George is very good about, like, encouraging new smokers to enjoy the cigars. I think the smoke, though, on this one is a little bit on the dry side. Like, the palate feels a little bit dry. Not dry, but like definitely dry, clean. Oh, San Luis Rey. Thank you very much. Thank you. Sorry. I knew it was something that was familiar. I just couldn't recall what it was right off the moment. Like, even if I bite a little bit on the tip to try to, like, crush it and get a little more airflow, that is not working. This is definitely a solidly rolled cigar. I mean, it's very well balanced, even today, and still a nice flavor. Like, you might think that there'd be, like, some kind of loss due to the age, but I don't know. I wouldn't say there's loss to it. It's still got a nice complexity, but it's a much milder experience. Balanced, but mild. Andrew says single lens reflex. That's true. That's true. That is a great one to remember. I don't know if you guys are much into cameras, but evidently there's a resurgence in film cameras going on the last couple of years and into now, which I thought was really interesting because I remember during the pandemic, like in 2021, 2022, or 2020, 2022, 2021. I go to Service Photo in Baltimore quite a lot, and I remember back then I was there, and I was like, and I have an old Canon F1 film camera, and I was like looking for lenses, and I remember asking the guys, "Hey, you guys got any lenses for this camera?" And they're like, "Let me go look." They went to the back and looked, came out with some. They're like, "Yeah, we got these lenses." They had like 4 lenses. How much do you want for them? You could just have them. It's like, what? Yeah, you just take them. Okay. There was like a corn array and a couple cannons, and I was like, oh, you don't want them? It's like, you don't want any money for them? No, no, we can't get rid of them. And now people are clamoring for them. Andrew says, speaking of cameras, what was your title in the movie making days? God of Film was my title. God of Film. No, I actually worked in. So when you work in motion picture production, you work in what they call crafts, and like when you hear a lot of what you'll hear of things like grip, gaffer, makeup. Those are all the different crafts in the trades. I didn't really work in those. I ended up in. I came from a video production background, right? So I worked ENG production. I did live television. I did cable television. I did a lot of video. And while it was good to learn video, I kind of wanted to get out of it. I was like, I want to get out of video. I want to go to film. I want to be an auteur. I want to be a film. I want to be in movie making. So when I finally got into movie making, I ended up in one of two specialties, one of two crafts. Sound, which is I was quite interested in, doing location recording, which was really cool. I like that. And then I ended up doing what's called I did three crafts total: sound, location sound, and then I did what's called 24 frame playback, which is basically in the old days when we had CRT televisions. If you know much about video production old school NTSC broadcast was so old CRTs had what called a raster that was inside the big tube, and this raster drew lines, with electrodes across the front of your screen, and each pass was one field. And back then, there were 480 lines on a typical CRT raster or a typical CRT screen, which is why now when you talk about original high definition, 720 lines, 1080 lines, 2160, which is 4K, so on and so forth. Back then, it was still 480. And we did fields. And while we always said it was 30 frames or 30 fields per second, the actual frame rate or field rate was per second was actually 29.97, which is, it may seem like a small difference, but that 0.03 seconds could make all the difference in the world, depending on what you need to do technically. Motion picture cameras were running at a very solid 24 frames per second, right? So on 8mm, 35mm film, 24 frames a second was the standard. 16 was 24, is that right? But 8 was 16 frames per second. And and if you ever remember in the old days, if you ever saw like a camera look at a screen, you would see this fluttering. Even with a video camera from that era, there would be flutter and the flutter happened because even though the video camera was opening its aperture, 29.97 times per second, you had that fluttering on the screen because they were never open at the same exact time, right? So as the raster drew that in that one moment, that split second of a moment, the frame was never fully opened, right? It was at different stages of opening and drawing. That's why you got the flutter. And film cameras would happen the same way, because now it's even worse, because instead of both cameras running or both the screen and the camera running at the same frame rate, just slightly off, now they're very far off because one is a completely different frame rate at 24 frames. So you're at 5.97 frames difference. So in order to make that work on camera, so that whenever the camera panned over and saw a television screen, there would be no flutter. You had to do what I did, which is 24 frame playback. And what we had to do is we had to use specially modified CRT screens. So all the screens you saw in the movies were never like you couldn't just buy them at like CompUSA or at the Circuit City. You had to like buy them at Circuit City, take them to a specialized video warehouse where they would install this electronics into it that you could control that screen. What I mean by that is that you would then connect to you would connect to the camera, you would connect to the playback device, and you would connect to the CRT screen, and then you would connect to another control unit. Because they had also a control unit. So when you played back your video for that source, for that screen, it would conform that to 24 frames per second. So it would change the 2997 to 24. So that when the camera's aperture shutter opened, the controller would tell that videotape recorder to play one frame, tell the CRT to draw the frame while this is open, close, open again. So in many respects, it's a very highly technical role. I don't think that role exists in the same way today because now everything's on video and now you can change frame rates and you can do all kinds of stuff. So I haven't kept up. So that's what I did. I did that. And I also did what's called video playback or what's called video assist back then. It's still called video assist today, but it's much more complex today. Like I remember going on set several years, quite a few years, it's maybe 15 years ago now. I'm talking to the assist guy, and he was like, "Yeah, this is what we do now." I was like, "Holy God, it's like so much more. It's all like computerized, and these guys can edit the movie on the fly for the director if they want to see multiple camera angles and how to assemble them, and they can capture the video from the actual production cameras in pretty much full resolution. Whereas back then, we would have video taps connected to the iris of the film cameras, right? Because we use 35 millimeter film cameras. And so we would have you'd see those guys, they would be, using, the camera operators would be looking through the viewfinder at the frame. We would have a camera that was connected to that prism that was inside the camera as well. And we would record that onto 8 millimeter videotape, which was very low resolution, like 480 lines, something like that. And we could play that back so that the production people, the director, producer, whoever, actors, they could get an idea of what had been captured on film. And so those were the main roles that I did in motion picture production. Brian says, I'm still using Polaroid knockoff. I heard that Polaroid, maybe not that company that originally started, but there's a new Polaroid now, I think. I liked Polaroids back in the day, but they were always expensive. $1 a shot. It's like, oh, now it's more. I'm like, oh God. I much rather use the phone. And like in modern times, like you see on YouTube, you always see, people on YouTube talking about filming. And that honestly, that rankles me a lot. Like I get irritated when people say, we're filming. You're not filming. You have no idea what filming means. And those of you who work with film cameras still will understand what I'm talking about, because in the film days, you go out and shoot, and especially on motion picture productions or television series, it was a lot more acute because just of the cost and scale involved, right? But you would go out and shoot your film for the day, and then you'd have to go process it. And you took your time to shoot it and expose it correctly and do all the stuff we would normally do. But you never knew what you were going to get. Like you kind of had an idea. You're pretty sure what you got. You understood it enough to expose it the way you wanted to, but you wouldn't know what happened for sure until a day or 2 or 3 days later, when you'd send the film off to the lab. They'd process it and those are film negatives, so they're all negative. So they would process it as a negative and then print it as a positive for a work print, and they'd send it back to you. You get that back. You put it on a projector and you watch it, what we call dailies back in the day. It wasn't until the dailies that you knew what you got. Like, did somebody in the chain muck it up, right? Like the worst would be like scratches on the emulsion side of the negative, right? Because you just couldn't fix that. It was destructive kind of thing. And what that meant is that inside the film camera, there is a gate, what we call a gate, that locks the film into the track that holds it in position to expose it to the light. And camera operators are very meticulous about making sure the gate is clean, the interior chamber of the camera is super clean. But should some piece of dust get lodged in it somehow, and they missed it, and it was on the emulsion side, the inside side of the film, and it scratched the emulsion, that meant that it scratched the emulsion off of the cellulose or the whatever the material is. At that time, cellulose had been long gone by the time I got into the business. That image was gone. That image was totally destructed. So it would be like reshoots, which means that you have to get the whole company to go back to wherever you were to redo it, reset up everything that you had, and do it all over again. So it was wildly like expensive to have that happen. And just everybody would get really like upset, especially the production guys, because they're the ones holding the money and they're cheap. So that's kind of that's what I used to do in the business. But now that's all different, because now when you shoot, like when I shoot YouTube videos, I can see exactly what we're shooting as we're shooting it. Like it's a full representation of what we're capturing in the recording. So that's why for me, it's like film is very specific. Film is a lot of chance going on. Whereas video, there's like, what you got. So much nicer. Oh, see, this went out. Let's go again. Andrew says, and now we have AI with Val Kilmer appearing in a new film. Wow, really? Val Kilmer's in a movie? God. That's great. Yeah, I'm presuming that the Kilmer, whoever lives after Kilmer, is okay with this. I was just talking with a friend of mine, actually a friend of mine from high school, who joined my union because he was a couple years younger than me. So he joined my union a few years after I did. And he worked in the business for many, he actually still technically works in the business. But he does something completely different now. But he was telling me that, man, like ever since COVID was bad for the motion picture production industry here in the United States. But after that, now in modern times, especially, man, it's so much worse. Like there are guys, even some of the guys that I know that are in the business, they haven't worked in the business in like 3 years. Like if you look at the Star Trek movies or the series, they're all shot in Canada. So American production has moved pretty much outside of the United States for the most part. So even in production places where like production centers like Atlanta's like dead. Everywhere is dead. Baltimore is dead. Even Hollywood is pretty much dead. Like I know a friend of mine who is a television editor. Like he does a lot of the editing for the Oscars and things like that. Like it's been so bad for him. He had to go move out of his place and live with family because it's just like the amount of production being done inside the United States has dropped, I mean, to almost nothing. Tony on the road, what's going on, man? Good to see you. How you doing? Welcome to back. We've had a bit of a longer evening. We started off with another of the Long Live the Queens from Caldwell to see what the difference was between last week's Long Live the Queen that was 6x60 and this one, which was that Tony gave me, that's a 46 by 5.5 inches. So a lot better, a lot more controlled, a little bit better score. Actually, the score I don't think the score was dramatically higher. So today, the Corona, oh yeah, 87.75. Last week's cigar, 85.5, 85.75. So only a 2-point increase, which I guess maybe is, now that we look back upon it, it's a little bit surprising and maybe disappointing that it didn't fare much higher, but perhaps that's really a testament to the quality of the overall blend of the cigar, even regardless of how much more filler there is in the larger cigar. It still was very good. Like even in the major categories of like the three different segments, body on both. While the body I ranked last week's cigar 8.25, so just a little bit low on the very good scale. This week 8.5, so very good plus. And then flavor wise 8.5, and here 9. So definitely, an improvement in flavor, like a noticeable improvement in flavor. But looking at the scores now, it's like, oh, it wasn't a tremendous change in score, but I think it was a much more improved experience in the smoking experience. And Andrew wants to know, Tony, what's your Filipino Easter table going to look like? I'm trying to remember. Did you say you were Filipino, Tony? My apologies if you did, and I don't remember. But we're moving on now. So because the other one's so small, we figured that would be pretty quick smoking, which it was. We were finished probably about 8:15, and started this around 9:30 and 9:15, but 9:30 this one. And this is a 1996 La Gloria Cubana Minuto from what I'm going to say is the golden era of Ernesto Perez Carrillo, when he really built his reputation and like became like the fantastical cigar maker that he is today. Tony's got the Toro DJU. What's DJU? Oh, right. Don Juan Urquijo. Oh, yeah, that's right. You were in the Philippines. That's right. In Cebu, smoking the DJUs and the black coffee. Nice. What kind of coffee did you get? Or do you have there in the Philippines? And how's the weather? Here in Maryland, we've taken a little bit of a turn for the cold. Enough that I got the heater out after a while. And but we had 80s yesterday. So I don't know what's going on here, but evidently we're going to go back down to 30 by next week. But we're going to have higher temperatures tomorrow. So it's we're in that era of like Maryland weather where it gets kind of crazy. I gather he's military mainland. He did say that. I'm sorry. I totally that detail kind of escaped me again. But once I figured out what DJU meant, that reminded me. Okay, that's exactly what it is. Tony says instant, but it's a nice blend. Not sure about the brand. Maybe it's Filipino. Okay, gotcha. I remember years ago that in the Philippines they have something called 3-in-1 coffee, which is an instant coffee made by Nestle typically. And because the Philippines is a country where people are relatively they don't make a lot of money, so they sell a lot of individual packets of pretty much everything. Like you can go to certain stores where you can buy single servings of shampoo, conditioner, soap, coffee, laundry detergent, daily sundries. You can buy individual prepackaged packs. But I remember back in the old days, about the same time that this cigar came out, the big one was a Nestle 3-in-1, and you buy these packets, like you get them in a row, or you can buy however many. I think I bought like 10. and it was sweet, lightly sweet, powdered cream, instant coffee. I remember it being kind of fun to drink back then. I don't know how I would think about it today, but it was fun. It was fun. Yeah, the only thing about this cigar, it's very nice, but it is tight. The draw is really tight. I think for our body, I'm going to say it's a light body. I'm going to give it an 8 for very good. Flavor, I think 8.25 is where we're going to go. Tony says, I got a nice manual coffee bean grinder coming in. Ooh. Do you know what which one, what it's called, which brand it is, or what it model? I got a call from a friend of mine who just got hired by one of the espresso or one of the coffee grinding companies called Eureka. She was like, maybe you'd like maybe we can see if we can get you some sponsorship. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty good. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I was thinking maybe get a grinder. Eureka makes grinders. I was thinking maybe one of the dose by weight espresso grinders that they make. I was looking at their catalog today. But I was also thinking if they'll go for it, say, hey, why don't you, how about sending me one? Sending me two, and then I can do a giveaway on the channel for it. But I don't know if they're going to go for that. Tony says, I do enjoy coffee. I like dark roasted black. Ooh, that sounds good. That sounds good. Today we had a coffee called Blendy from Japan. A little bit darker on the roasting side, but I didn't know this until I put it to my lips, but it's actually sweetened. And I was like, oh, man, kind of rough. Actually, the problem with this cigar is not that it's too rough, but it was more that I think it interfered with the flavor of the coffee on the first cigar. So I kind of like drank it a couple of times, but I was like, okay, let's put that aside because I think it's interfering with our perception of the cigar. So let's give that a rest. Mondigo portable grinder. Oh, I'm not familiar with that. Is that a made in the Philippines grinder, or is that from somewhere else? The truth is, I'm not really very well versed in, despite being in the coffee business, I'm not very well versed in a lot of the consumer products, stuff that enthusiasts have. Like a lot of the viewers on the morning stream, they always tell me about new products. And I was like, oh, I didn't know about that. What's the right burr with what grinder? I was like, oh, interesting. And I'll do local honey sometimes. Oh, the local honey is nice. Actually, that reminds me, I got to go see one of the local Sawyers here. He's kind of funny. Like this guy's, his whole family has been in like sawmill operations. He's probably about our age. So maybe he's a little bit older, but he's so he's a sawmill guy. Been sawing, milling all his life. And it's funny because he's really into beekeeping. Like he's super into beekeeping. And I found that out because he had some honey at his sawmill one day last year. And I was like, oh, you make honey? He's like, yeah, I make honey. So I bought a bottle of it to use on the live stream, the morning show. And as I was looking it up, I was like, oh, this guy's got a YouTube channel. It's not a big channel, but he does live streams every Friday night. His name is called, Sawmill Charlie is his name on YouTube. And he does live streams about beekeeping every Friday night. And he goes, like, I thought that 2 hours is a pretty lengthy live stream, but he's like 4 hours into it. Like, wow. Like he's got people coming on from all over the country. Really interesting. I mean, if you're into beekeeping, I'm not really into beekeeping, so I don't really understand a lot of what they talk about when I do watch it, but it is kind of interesting. But I've been meaning to go by there to go visit with him because, you know, we always talk about YouTube stuff, but more importantly, because I was like, man, I need to get some more. What I want to get from him is like, I'm presuming he has beeswax. I want to get some beeswax from him. Not sure, but it's nice metal and adjustable. Ooh, nice. All right, that's a good one. Not too expensive, I imagine. So while we've had this last couple of puffs, it started to, I feel like the draw has loosened up a little bit and we're getting a little bit more darker tones out of it. What is this? 269. Just had to make sure I wrote down the the notes for this cigar. Yeah, Tony. So how do you guys do your Easters? Is it pretty big in your family, at your house? I think Stephen is heading to the Philippines soon, right, Stephen? I think said he was going to go down to Mindanao. Is that where you're headed to? Next month or June? The only problem in June is that it gets rainy in June. Actually, now I guess, Tony, it's getting hot, right? Like this is the hot time of the year. Andrew says, subject for a morning speaking honey, pairing different sweeteners with coffee. Oh, that's a good idea. I like that. Tony says that the Don Juan Urquijo definitely needs to be aged in the humidor. I tried one a month one, and it wasn't as good as the one which was a year old. Oh, okay, good to know. Good to know. How much do those cost there now? Is it pretty expensive or is it fairly reasonable? About $30. Oh, for the grinder. That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. And Devins is Stephen's going to Philippines in May for a month. Whoa, man, for a whole month. Man, even I don't get to go for a month. I could wreck myself in a month there. Tony says, my customer raises bees and brought me a late harvest honey. Oh, late harvest honey. Wow. Pretty damn tasty. Definitely different than the commercial. I'm curious to know, do you know what they mean by late harvest honey? I mean, I didn't know that there was such a thing. That's very interesting. I remember I tried a lot of honeys over the years. We used to make a drink at the shops called honey macchiato. Real simple drink, but one of the customer favorites. Like this is one of our best-selling espresso-based drinks through the history of Spro. And it's really simple. So double shot of so you take your demi-tasse cup, you put a little like demi-tasse worth dollop of honey, espresso, and then you stir it just a little bit just to make sure it combines. Or you don't have to. You could do either way. And then steam milk on top of it, or actually steam half and half to get nice and thick, rich texture to it. And man, that's a really enjoyable beverage. But we've tried offering we've tried many different honeys to express it in different ways, which is really an interesting way to try it, to explore a drink. And I remember one of my friends gave me this I think it was a chestnut honey. Chestnut? Some kind of nut honey from Italy. So he went to Italy, found this like bee guy who I guess was in a grove of chestnut trees or whatever kind of walnut, not walnut, but whatever kind of nut, some kind of nut. Castagna nut, castella nut, something, I don't know. It was a long time ago. And you know, when you have bees that are whatever they're eating, whatever they're pollinating from, that becomes a big component of the honey. Man, I have not found a more disagreeable honey to my palate than that. Oh, like it was so bitter. It was like bitter and like I didn't like it. Like we offered it for like maybe 3 weeks. Mixed reaction from guests. I just didn't like it. I hate to say that. I hate to say it. Steven says, I'm going to Manila, Dipolog, North Cotabato, and Fire Island. Oh, wow, that's a lot. 750 pesos each for the Don Juan or Quijos. Okay, that's not terrible. That's not terrible. And Andrew says, all of the pollen of the flowers in bloom. Oh, all in the pollen of the flowers. Oh, the flavor. Yes, yes. Oh, Sikihor is Fire Island. Okay, gotcha. Thank you. Thank you. I wasn't sure what. Like I said before, I very rarely have gotten out of Manila when I'm there. And I could be there for like a couple weeks at a time and I just never leave. It's like I just feel safe and secure in my little world there. I have a little world and I don't like to leave it. It's like I don't want to leave it. But yeah, that does sound like a good time. That sounds like a good time. Like I said the last time, my last trip there was the first time I really got out and went somewhere. I went to Negros Island, and then I went to Cebu for a couple of days, and then I was like, went back. I was like, oh, I finally got to leave. Finally got to leave. I don't know if I mentioned this last week because I don't know how old this was, but one of my friends was going to the Philippines to go see his parents. His parents live, or his parents, they spend the winters there, I think. So he went to go see them like last week, I think it was. And he was posting about it. He was like, I went to the airport and there was a line. Huge line. Hours long wait. He missed his flight. And the airline, which is Philippine Airlines, was giving him a hard time, like, well, you have to give us some kind of documentation of why you missed your flight. It's like, what are you talking about, man? It's on the news. There's just lines and TSA and shutdown. And he was getting mad. I was like, well, I'd be mad too. It's like ridiculous. Of course, it's Philippine Airlines, which is kind of like a cluster on normal days. Andrew says, I have a New Zealand honey for you next. Oh, okay. All right. Awesome. And Tony said he's got some Bohol honey. Oh, how is that? I remember I tried a honey once that was pollinated from pepper plants. Is that right? Pepper plants? That was interesting. And not like the pepper honey where they infuse the honey with peppers. Not like that, but just I think that I've had that. All right, we're done with the second third. So I think it's still very consistent. Like it's not, and I wonder, like the body's low, 8.25 for flavor. Tony says, Buddies is closed for the evening, so good night. All right, Tony, have a good night. Good to see all you guys. Have a good one. We'll continue for the rest of this cigar at least. Especially since the heat is running, so it's not too bad. George Shem, what are you smoking tonight? Let's see how this blendy coffee is doing. Still very sweet, still very roasty. I mean, not terrible. Rusty, you're on holiday this week, right? How have you been spending your time? Like I said, Rusty. It was Rusty who had been pushing for us to go do the thing at Cigars International on Sunday. So we all went up to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, to Cigars International and had some cigars for a few hours. One of my good friends, Troy Raynard, works there, so we were able to have a little bit of a welcome to the space. But we smoked some interesting cigars. I'm gonna hear. See, what did I smoke there? I had my first one that I started there with. One of the guys that worked there recommended it. A cigar called the Definition. They're evidently a Texas-based brand that has cigars. I forgot. I think they're made in the Dominican Republic. This one was kind of like a fat figurado, short figurado, with a. They use a lace kind of band, like fabric lace. That was a nice cigar. That was pretty heavy, a lot of flavor, a lot of body. I gotta say, I wonder, like, was that the right cigar to start with? Because it was pretty heavy. I was like, oh, probably should have come to that a little bit later. And then I went on to a Rocky Patel Emerald that Troy gave me, and I was like, I wasn't, with me, Rocky Patel, I always have this like hesitance when it comes to Rocky. Like he was like, "Have you tried the Emerald?" And I was kind of like, "No, I haven't tried that." He's like, "Maybe you should give it a try." I was like, "All right." And that's one thing I don't want to. I always like anyone. I have my own prejudices based on my experiences, and historically, Rocky Patel and I have not always had good experiences as far as the flavor of the cigars, like my enjoyment of the cigars. And I was a little bit hesitant, but I was like, I can't let that color what I try, right? So I was like, yeah, they're good to try. So I got that box press cigar, fairly nice, fairly enjoyable. But unfortunately, I followed after the Definition, which was very heavy. So this was not of that strength level. So I think that I missed out on quite a bit of what that cigar might have been offering because my palate had been so hit by the first cigar. George says he's having the first cigar, the Long Live the Queen, but from Caldwell, the Corona size. I think the Corona size. And you let me know when you get a chance. But I did think it was an improvement over the 6x60. Definitely much more enjoyable, much more rewarding at the end of the day. So we had the Emerald, had the Definition, and then by that point I had smoked a couple cigars. So I kind of wanted to go back and have something familiar, right? Because they were all new cigars. I wanted to go back to familiar. So I ended up kind of chopping out, and went with the Roma Craft Cro-Magnon EMH Fomorian, the Candela wrapped Robusto, which of course was in my alley. Like that's in my line of flavor preferences. So it was kind of easy to roll with. But we do have some cigars. I did get a couple cigars for the next couple weeks. Next week we're going to be doing the Definition Alianza. It's got if you look up Definition cigars, it's the cigar that has the black and gold woven band. That one, and then after that is Alec Bradley. Let's see here. I got them here in our humidor. Yeah, I think it's Alec. Yeah, Alec and Bradley Gatekeeper Toro. So that's going to be in 2 weeks. The Gatekeeper. So if you have the chance to get either of those cigars for the upcoming weeks. I know I haven't been very good at keeping the schedule like ahead of time. It's because a lot of times I'm getting it that week. So Rusty says I forgot to get the Emerald, and I was pissed at I didn't know that my Father Blue sold out. Oh, that's too bad. Tony says, so the Caldwell's worth a try? I think so. George says yes. I think it's worth a try. The bigger one, the 6x60, I think it depends. Like if you're a 6x60 smoker, like if you like that size of cigar, and that's what you normally smoke, I think you'll find a lot of the difference with this Caldwell in it. Because and I say that because I think that if you're someone that smokes that style of cigar on the regular, you're used to the way that ratio of filler to wrapper is going to present itself. So I think if that's your realm, then you'll definitely notice the difference with the Caldwell. But I think if you're not necessarily a 6x60 smoker, I think you'll find greater pleasure in the smaller one, like this 46 or this 5.5 by 46. I think that's a much nicer presentation, better wrapper to filler ratio. Whereas last week we had that Caldwell had that nice kind of spice, Old Bay spice wrapper. And then sometimes we talked about it having the filler of this nice and bright character, citrusy, not citrusy, but kind of bright character to it. But they were kind of removed, right? And that wrapper flavor was in the distance. In the 46 ring gauge, they were much tighter together, much tighter. They worked well, they worked really well together. So I found it to be much more enjoyable. The score doesn't reflect a tremendous difference, 2 points, but I think that the overall experience was definitely superior. Andrew says the My Father Blue Ribbon is top notch. I agree. Tony says, I'd like to try the My Father Blue. How is where you are in the Philippines? Because even in Manila, at least the last time I was there, it hadn't changed, but in Manila, I go to Elbert's whiskey room where they have the cigars. And actually it's called Elbert's Riedel Room. And they have some cigars there, mostly Cuban. So like the selection of cigars. And if I go to the Tabacalera Cigar Divan at the Manila Peninsula, of course, it's all Tabacalera product. How is the availability of non-Philippine cigars where you are? Is it possible to get that, or is that something you have to order and ship in? Oh yes, I had that Tatuay. Gosh, the Nuevitas. That is something that I actually forgot to put in here. Let me put that in here right now. Thank you, Mom. Appreciate that. I was actually looking at that list and I was thinking, I'm missing something. I don't know what it is, but thank you for reminding me. Actually, I went home that night, smoked another cigar, smoked a Breach of the Peace Roma. Yeah, because we had 4 cigars there, and I was like, man. I remember at the last one, I was like, oh, I'm feeling a little bit. By the time we got to the EMH, I was like, when we finished the EMH, I was like, I could have smoked another. I mean, we could have taken the time to smoke another one without having to leave. But I was like, okay, I think that's enough for now. It's enough. Tony says it's possible I order from Manila that there are a few cigar bars that deliver. Oh, okay, awesome. There was a time in like 2013 when my brother used to live there. My brother moved to Manila with his family in 2012, and they moved back to the United States in 2015. But while he was there was a time when I was like, there was a retail space open in San Juan, and I was like, should we open a cigar shop here? That would be kind of interesting. But it was like, how do we logistically get the cigars to the Philippines? That always seemed a bit difficult. Although I do wonder how it would have done. Andrew says it's 46 degrees with rising wind, so getting too cold. Gonna head out. All right, man. Have a great one. Good to see you, Andrew. Tony says, I'm thinking of ordering Cubans with wide shorts with a pack of 6. I'm not familiar with the wide shorts. One cigar that I've really enjoyed over the last few years, like historically with Cubans, I really like the Monte Cristo number 2. But the problem with Cubans, generally speaking, is that there can be very large inconsistencies with Cubans, meaning that like you can get one batch of Cubans. Like I remember specifically one time we were ordering a batch of a box of Monte number 2s from one of my favorite dealers who not too long after this stopped shipping to the United States. A guy named Gerard in Geneva. Actually, he probably shipped to the Philippines if you wanted to, but he's not cheap. But his quality is very high. Like I've never had a bad cigar from him. And I remember one year, one of my friends and I, we bought a box of Monte number 2s from him. We split the box. Cost us a wild amount of money to ship it there because it was like $220, $250 for the box. Cost us $90 in shipping. What we forgot was that it's $90 for up to 4 boxes. So whether you buy 1 box or 4, $90. Should have bought 4, but we didn't. We forgot about that. But this box was so good that I sucked my half in 2 weeks. Like I was 2 weeks gone. I was like, couldn't get enough. And then it was a question of like, okay, let's get some more. But do we want to pay Gerard's prices? Not really. A place called Puro Express in Spain was much cheaper. So we called it Puro Express. They sent us a box, much cheaper price overall, I think $200 and then like $40 in shipping or $10, $20 in shipping, whatever it was, really much more affordable. Dog rockets. Those Monte number 2s were terrible. Like they were so hollow compared to the ones we got from Gerard. I remember I took my half of the box. I put it in the humidor. I let it sit for a year. I figured a year later it'd be fine. Maybe it'd improve. A year later, it was still terrible. It just still like nothing worthwhile other than to like recover, your money. So sourcing is going to be important. But if you can find one, I remember I was in Frankfurt, Germany in 2018. The end of November 2018, I was there. Just transiting, and I usually when I transit through Germany, I'll take a day or two and hang out you can go buy and stuff and hang out, whatever. And so they had just opened the La Casa del Habano in Frankfurt that month. So I stopped by and I was like, "What's good?" And they're like, "There's a new release of the Trinidads called the Media Luna." And I was like, "All right." It's kind of like a short Robusto, like a thick Robusto. Man, that was a great cigar. And every Media Luna that I've had ever since then has been very good. So I think if you can find Media Luna, that's the size. The brand is Trinidad. I think that'd be well worth exploring. I mean, the number 2 Monte Cristo is always good. I mean, a lot of the classic Cubans tend to be very nice. Some of the old Joyo de Monterrey's, the Bolivar Belicoso, or is it Belicoso? Yeah, Bolivar Belicoso, or the Partaga Series D number 4. All are very typically solid smokes. But again, it always goes back to like the source, like because from what I've been told, in Cuba, like they can do a run of like the factory can do a run of like Monte number 2s, and it turned out to be great, and people want to buy as much as they can. So they're trying to respond to that. So they ramp up production, regardless of whatever tobaccos they have. They just ramp up production. So the subsequent production tends to be less. And if you get those, you're disappointed. So that's, to me, is the downside with Cubans, that you kind of have to evaluate your risk on them. Tony says, good idea to open cigar bar, not many other than Manila. But I wonder, is there much interest? Like, this is what in America, when we go to cigar shops, America's a very cigar world in the United States is a very democratic kind of place, meaning that you can meet people enjoying cigars from all walks of life, many different levels of economics, right? Social order levels are very different. But when I'm elsewhere in the world, it's not like that at all. Like whether I'm smoking in London or Frankfurt or Asia or anywhere, or even in like South America, Central America, invariably cigar smoking is really, and I don't know if it's limited by this or if it's just the way the economics work, is that it's always the people that have a lot more money and a better standing in their societies that have the disposable income to enjoy cigars. So that's one of the big reasons why we kind of held back on trying a cigar shop, even though we were in San Juan, and San Juan is a relatively, wealthy area. And like if I think about Albert's, well, Albert's is a wonderful place to go. I don't know, like he's not making his money off of cigars. He's making his money off of food and the beverage sales. The cigars are his passion, his hobby. So he has a place for that. So we all partake, but everybody there is, of the higher classes, right? They all have a lot of money. Well, they all have, they have means. They have means, I should say. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of held back. And that's one of the unique things that I find about cigars in America, is that we very much a very democratic kind of world where we have enough income. Most people have enough income that they can indulge every once in a while, at least. Tony says that there is one nice cigar bar in Cebu called Le Bar. Oh, okay. It's cheap. The small pack of Cubans, like $50 for 6 shorts. Okay, that sounds good. You would need to add a restaurant and live band and maybe I know you always got to have the resort. The resort's an important thing. Yeah, that's why I never did coffee in the Philippines. Like, I don't want to do the whole food thing. It's like that's not my interest. I mean, I love food. I love working with restaurants and in restaurants, but I don't want to run one. I remember one of my girlfriends many years ago. She was like, "Why don't you open a restaurant?" I was like, "No. I want to go to restaurants. I don't want to run a restaurant." Cigars by the poolside be nice. That would be nice. I mean, this cigar has been well balanced, mild, enjoyable overall. But it's definitely, like I said, this cigar, La Gloria Cubana Minuto, 1996. So it's a cigar from a very, very different time of cigars. Back when things were not as wild. I mean, I would compare cigars from this era to cigars of today. Today being a much wilder time, right? We've got so much more different flavors, so much more body, so much more strength. Right. In order to capture the attention of the modern day cigar smoker, I think a lot of cigars got to have some kind of oomph. This is just kind of about blending, refinement, tobacco, smoothness. And that's really what this epitomizes. You could sell coffee and nice drinks. Maybe. Maybe one day. Got to find the right partner, All right, let's see here. I mean, I think we're still in the 825 range and 8 for the body. Burn and draw has been so the draw has been tight. So I'm going to mark that down a bit. So I'm going to say 8.5. Consistency, it has been very consistency. So I'm going to say 9. So we're going to say 17.5. And then let's see, overall, I think I'm going to say 8.25 overall. which gives us a total score for this 30-year-old Benuto of 82 points. No, not bad, not bad. All right. I think that's going to be good for this week. Back again next week. We're going to have the definition. What's it called again? Definition. I'll get the name right. It's in the show notes today, just in case you want to look it up. But definition Anillo. So as you can see here, it's got this gold and black woven band. So nice. That'll be our cigar for next week. If you can get one to join me, that'd be great. I'd love that. And then, of course, the Gatekeeper from Alec Bradley will be 2 weeks from now. But yeah, that's going to be it for this week. Thanks for hanging out with me as always. Back again next Thursday for the Thursday Night Hang. So yeah, I think that'll be good. So hope you have a great one. Thanks for hanging out with me as always. And see you next time. Good to see you too, Mom. Have a great one.